Good morning, good afternoon, good day, LA. We're here with Shauna Skarin. Shauna Skarin with Fidelity National Title. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me, Toni. It's so great to see you as always, and I love you and your program. So happy to be here. Happy to be part of it.
Yeah, you know, I'm usually interviewing agents, right? I usually do a lot of agent interviews, but this time I've decided I want to get outside of the agent world and get into some of the really critical, important aspects of real estate, and that is title, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to cover, you know, the basics of title. First of all, tell us who you are, what you do, who you're with, and what your role is with Fidelity.
Okay. My name is Shauna Skarin, and I've worked at Fidelity for the last 11 years, coming up on 12. And I have been a title rep, a marketing title rep is the official name, but we also are known as vice president. We're also known as your sales rep. We're the boots on the ground out in the field. That's my role. So in total, I've been doing this for 17 years now. Toni, I've known you from, day one when I really got started. So it's so thrilling to watch your journey because you know all of the complicated matters. So you are truly a specialist in this arena, because I know that for a fact, because when the transactions get to me with the point of the sale happening, that's a point where I'm getting involved for title and then escrow. So title and escrow go hand in hand together, even though they're a third party, neutral party.
Right.
It's almost like the car with the engine. We come together with that PSA once you have the RPA signed, and then we get going from there. And I'm mostly behind the scenes, even though I'm out in front teaching classes and getting to know agents and transactions. We have a title officer that is inside of Fidelity, that's behind a computer with our engineering department, because that property, that individual property, then has to go through a whole laundry list of checks and balances for that preliminary title report to come back to you correct. And remember, the preliminary title report is just that, preliminary. So we're going to pick up more than less on a prelim, and then we're going to clean it up during that escrow period. So that's when I'm really working with the escrow officer, my internal staff, and with the agent or the principal. I'm connecting with, depending on the type of vesting that they have done, depending on the liens that are on that property that we see, and including how I can take things off or add things on, because that's the point where we get the statement of information, and that comes from you, the agent, that you're talking to your client. This is for the seller side. And we have to, it's Los Angeles. So that's what we're talking about right now. So imagine if there's a property and somebody's name is Joe Smith. There's a lot of information on Joe Smiths that are going to come up and pop up, and it's part of our role to clear it off. So it's your specific Joe Smith, that's the seller, because we don't want another Joe Smith's judgment, right, on top of his property. And that's when we get the social security number on that statement of information. And we run something called a GI, which is the general index. And that helps internally then alleviate some of those issues. And we kind of go into the weeds to make sure that we have it so that we can insure it as the policy. So the preliminary title report starts. We work hand in hand with the escrow officer. If there's something on there, let's say a IRS tax lien, they're going to have to order, it's called the demand. And so they order it from the IRS. Guess what? Guess how fast they are, in response times for sending that back. It can be 2 weeks. That's a good, but it could be 3 to 4 weeks. And if we don't get that, the escrow doesn't get that demand back, we can't close until we know how much, you need to pay off those taxes for. And guess what? Those taxes get put in front of everything else, like that IRS, because the government is going to get their money first. So it puts them in that first position. So it's things like that. There's just an order of the chaos, right? There is an order of the chaos. And so we really work and strive to maintain that so that it's not as overwhelming for the transaction, because what we want, what you want, is to close. We're here to help you. And when there's sticky situations, and Toni, that's your specialty. You've talked to our state underwriter, everyone at Fidelity, because you're in the lion's den all day, every day. And so just the type of transactions that you do are by nature more complicated, period. So it's great when we have these relationships, because I know your style of work, and then we move it to the right area or the right title officer on the inside that always knows, okay, this is how Toni works. This is her style. This is coming in. We know it's coming in from you. So we trust that. And so we've just really built up a really solid, nice relationship over time. And I appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that's critical for any real estate agent that's dealing with, whether primarily representing sellers, the relationship with your title is key.
Yeah.
And, for the listener, I want to really just get down to the basics of what is title. A lot of people don't understand what title is and what they do. So from a basic layman perspective, can you kind of shed some light on really what title is?
Yes. So title insurance is its own specific niche in the insurance world. I do not represent, I cannot help you with your car insurance. I cannot help you with your fire insurance, on a condo. I cannot help you with any of those things. I specifically and only can help you with the ownership of the property that you're purchasing. The biggest asset that you're probably going to purchase in your life, right? So that's real estate, and it's specifically the name on title. It's basically who is on first. And it's not something that we can just pop in, swap out, change in, add somebody in. No, there's rules, and there's insurance policies, and there's Senate bills that tell us what we can do. So I have an insurance license with the Department of Insurance. All of our rates are published, so we get checked on that. We have to do the live scan and take a test, and so that's specifically the nuanced version of what I do. We get the preliminary title report, which shows everything from the seller, that owner's standpoint of what they owe on the property, any loans, any judgments, any issues. If there's a lis pendens, if they're in court, we're going to find out about it at this point of the transaction, because it's going to show on that report, and we're going to work to clear it together so we can close the transactions. Once the seller chooses, you have to designate a title company and an escrow company in the state of California. Once those are designated with the sale, then we work together, because the point of it is that you need an owner's policy at the end of it. So that owner's policy is what the current seller owner has already, because they are in the property, so they have it. And we want to make sure that we move it to the new buyer's name legally, and then they have their own policy on the property for them. So the old policy for that other seller goes away. They're out of the picture. They can't come back a year from now and say, hey, you owe me, this loan wasn't paid off, and it was $200,000, and now you buyer, you have to pay it for me. No, they will then have an insurance policy from us, and they would be able to place a claim against the title insurance company. And that would be our job, to unwind that or pay that loan off, that $200,000 loan, right? That would be our responsibility, so that new buyer never has to deal with it. We're always trying to create clean breaks. We love clean chains of title because it's a chain, right? Just like a chain, a link in the chain. And we go through each step of the way from each recorded deed so we can verify that it's fluid. Sometimes what happens, especially in probate, right? There's a break in the chain of title. And that's when we really get involved in the complicated transactions because let's do an example, a lifetime example right now is the Lisa Marie Presley, her recent passing.
Yes.
So there are two trusts. She has a trust, and then which she had put as the successor trustees. Those people were her children, the twins, her youngest children. Right before she passed, she amended the trust and put her older daughter as the successor trustee. And then she passed. So now we have two different trusts that are out there. So which one is going to be insurable that we verify? Because now as the title company, when she wants to sell her home, any one of her homes, right? We have to take a look at it. We have to look at the timeline, and either one of those parties does have a valid argument that they should be the actual seller. So it's causing the siblings to argue with each other just from what was named in those conflicting trusts. And it's not just celebrities that happens with, it happens not all of the time, but if you have a trust, it's not unusual to see a competing trust.
Yeah. Speaking of the trusts are not necessarily recorded.
Right.
So
you want to though.
Yeah.
You want to record. If you go through the effort of creating your trust, which there's methods of holding title. There's only a few options, but those options that you decide on are the future of what your beneficiaries are going to have to deal with easily or in a complicated manner.
Right.
And if that trust wasn't recorded, which does happen sometimes, we do have to go through our state underwriter at that point. We do have to work together to see if we're going to allow that as a valid trust, because generally what you do is you record that, and every single thing about your life you can put inside of there. I'm talking artwork that's expensive, cars, vehicles, all of that kind of stuff, not just the property. Because the trust kind of encompasses more, and then you direct, this is cool. Like if you don't have children, for example, this is where you start putting in your money for your charities and your funds, where you want it to go. Because if you don't do that trust and you own, let's just say, Southern California, let's just take a $2 million property, right? If you don't have a trust, you're vested just in your name, you pass and you have children, let's say, those kids are going to have to go to probate court. And that's when you're involved also as the listing agent, because you're directing them and helping them. But the property, because of that transfer of title insurance, does not go right to them. If you have a trust, it does. So that's because it's going to name inside of that trust who the trustee is. And so that's how we find out. But there's no way to know that ahead of time unless you get the copy of the trust. And that's intentional.
Yep.
That's intentional.
Now, what I have seen in many, 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 many occasions is where someone has a trust, but they can't find their paperwork.
Yeah, all the time. Also that.
This we see a lot. So tell us what happens when you have a trust, but you can't find the paperwork, because that paperwork is not public record.
Correct.
That the trust documents are not public record.
Correct.
And it's recorded on title that it's in a trust. But if you do not have that paperwork, let's say somebody's passed on and the kids can't find the paperwork, what happens?
So what happens in that case is we say, I take a look at when that trust was recorded, right? I get a copy of that. And then I say, okay, who prepared that trust? Who did it?
Right,
If we're lucky and it was done correctly, it's going to be an attorney that prepared it, right?
right.
So
Yeah,
then we're going to see their information. And if you have a great attorney that you like, know, and trust, they should email you a copy.
yeah,
They should just send it right over and say, this is what we created and here it is, part of the transaction.
yeah,
Now, if that attorney has retired, or if it was a legal Zoom or just done, recorded on your own,
yeah,
that is when a problem, it's an issue. It's an issue because as the insuring party of that ownership, what we're saying is we haven't missed anything. We know what we're recording, we're transferring into the new name. And if there's any error that comes up, we're going to pay the damage. That's what we're saying. And we
yeah,
pay up to the amount of that policy. So if it's a $2 million policy, which you're paying a nominal amount, right? In the transaction, there's 24 different roles that are happening all at the same time.
yeah,
I'm just one of the cogs in the wheel. But what we do is you pay this nominal amount, part of the
yeah,
transaction.
yeah,
But if we had missed a loan of $500,000 or so, let's say, that then goes to our claims department and you have representation of an attorney up to that $2 million mark. So imagine those billable hours, but that's on us that we're
yeah.
paying. So
Okay.
you're covered. You are covered. And that's why it's important to have a large title company that you're working with, because you have to have the reserves in order to pay out. And we have
That's right.
1.6 billion in reserves, because usually if a claim arises, it's not $5,000 or $10,000. It's usually a big one.
Yeah, yeah. That's very, very interesting. Now, let's just talk a little bit about deed fraud.
Mhm.
I remember a case that I was working on a few years back, and this happens a lot with seniors, and they get taken advantage of.
Right.
Let's say a senior is at a point in their life where they're moving to their kids' place, and they're living with their kid, but their
Okay.
property is sitting there and it's vacant.
Okay.
These are targets for
Mhm.
deed fraud.
Mhm.
And I've seen where people have come in and actually, I don't know how to describe it other than they've inserted themselves into the deed, into the
Oh, they recorded, they put their
they
name on title?
they put
They
their
added
name on
themselves?
title.
Yeah. Okay.
So tell us a little bit about the whole nature of deed fraud.
Okay, so is this maybe a situation where they're close, so that actual owner, that elderly person, then they were kind of influenced, right, to put this
Yep,
additional person on title?
yep,
Yes,
yep.
okay. So if they did it without insurance, because remember, anybody can still record a deed, which is,
Yeah,
it's that's the way that California, Los Angeles works. You can go into the county recorder's office, and as long as you have it correctly identified, filled out, you can hand it across the desk and they record it and they give you back your instrument number and you walk away with that. And 3 to 4 weeks later, it posts along the chain of title. So if they have done that, then we're going to, when we run that preliminary title report for that sale, we're going to pick both of those things up. That's a break in the chain of title, that they added somebody without a policy, right?
right,
And
right.
so we're going to ask for that elderly person, the individual that actually owns it. We're going to ask for an uninsured affidavit signed by them that they actually meant it. So it's a cross check, a double cross check, even though they already are on title, that other party, we're still going to go back and say, did you mean to sign this? Or is this erroneous? And if it is, then we have to unwind that. And then you have an issue. You do.
Which we call a cloud on title.
A cloud on title. A cloud on title. And there's also, the generic way to say anytime there's an issue, right? We say there's a cloud on title.
Right.
It's the happy way to say we need to fix something.
Right, exactly. And we see this a lot.
All the time, all of the time. Yes. I mean, I'm a misfix it. That's what I want to do, because I
Yeah,
want that transaction to close. You want the transaction to close. People are ready to move on at that point. And so we don't want to be a barrier to entry. We want to be a helper. So you legally get what you're paying for, and that you have that ownership for your future, because it's a vehicle for wealth, for
yeah,
your home life, the biggest asset purchase of your life,
yeah.
most likely. So it's a big deal. It's a small part of the transaction, but it's a big deal in the grand scheme of the real
Yeah.
estate transaction.
I want to have you speak to, there was something I was just thinking about that I want to have you speak to. And that is Hagstead.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Hagstead is? We often hear the term. Many agents don't know what it is. So let's talk about that.
So the Hagstead Act was implemented in the state of California, and it's a way, and Toni, I'm not sure, I wish that I had, the form so I could read it directly, off of
Yeah.
there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I might not do you justice on this one for the Hagstead
okay.
Act, but it's, it ends up being complicated, and it's another form in order to confirm the ownership, the property, the right, and it involves a little bit more with the state that you have to interact with. But I think maybe on the next podcast, if we spent the entire time on it, we could.
Yeah, because it's a subject in and of itself.
It is.
So,
it really is.
Yeah. So got it. And we'll do a day on Hagstead.
We will. We'll do a
Yeah.
we'll do a whole video just on that.
Yeah. And probate is a huge thing that we see a lot. And that's where people do not have a trust.
Correct.
And therefore, it needs to go to probate and get sorted out from there.
Right. And probate is the court. You go to probate court.
Probate court.
And so
Go ahead.
We need to get information. The court has to record and allow at that point who can sell the property for us to be able to insure it. So we're, as the insurance company, we can't make a decision for you, even though I love you, Toni, and we are working together and we want to close the transaction. If there's a probate, we can't take a guess as an insurance company of who gets to sign for the property, because it's too big of a risk. It's too much money involved, too much time, and we have to listen to what the judge tells us. We have to listen to the court order. And then once the judge tells us, which there's a petition for the court, and that whole process usually takes around 9 months. I don't know if it's been longer for you. I mean, since COVID, I would imagine.
Well,
it's even more difficult.
It can take up to 18. I've seen probates that take up to 18 months.
Have you?
Have
you? Okay, so that's.
And it really just depends on the complexity of the case and who's involved. Like right now, I have a probate that this woman recently married her husband within the last 3 years.
Okay.
He passed away.
Okay.
Prior to that marriage, he had a former wife and children, and there was no will and there was no trust. Okay. So suddenly the wife goes and files a probate case.
Okay.
Right? She files a probate petition.
Sure.
And technically the surviving spouse is going to be ruled that they would be making the decisions on behalf of the estate, right?
Did he add her into the vet? So that's the question, right? Even
he was not added into the vesting, no. So she's nowhere. She's nowhere on the loan. She's nowhere on the title.
But then the ex-wife was?
The ex-wife was passed on.
The ex-wife was passed, and then so he was just under his name with ex-wife, even though she passed.
Yeah, but the ex-wife was not on title, and she wasn't anywhere on the paperwork. But what happened is his kids filed a petition, and the spouse filed a petition.
Yeah. Okay.
He just so happened that the kids were estranged from their dad.
Okay,
So there was drama between dad and the kids, right?
sure, sure.
And so when he passed, his existing wife, his surviving wife,
Mm-hmm,
she filed a petition for the
mm-hmm.
probate, right?
Yes, yep,
And then here came the kids
sure,
filing
sure.
a petition for the case.
Yes,
So now the probate judge has
yes,
got to determine who's who in the zoo, first of all.
yes, yes, exactly,
Right? Got to determine
exactly.
who's who in the zoo, and then they have to determine who should really be authorized to run this estate. Right?
Exactly. So that is exactly a great point that shows what you do and what we do, because
Yep.
even though you want to move full steam ahead, we have that's a title issue. That's a cloud.
Yep.
That's a cloud.
That's a big cloud.
That's a cloud.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a big cloud. So
Yeah.
there's just so many complex situations that present themselves.
Yeah.
So it's critical to have a relationship with great title
Right.
company, officer, and representative like yourself. I can't tell you how many times you have saved our deal, because of your expertise and because of your service, and you're very highly service oriented, which I love, and I'm grateful for it. Because without that relationship, we theoretically don't have a smooth transaction. As it is, we have complexities anyway, but it really makes a difference when you have the relationship in place to where you can kind of hammer through these things.
Right, because for example, title industry, like with Fidelity, we're in the Fortune 500. We're number 238 this year, and it's a great company to work at. There's a lot of us, and there's a lot of paperwork being pushed all the time. And you want to be able to pick up the phone and not just call an 800 number and wait on hold. So you do want that relationship like what we have, because I can understand the nitty gritty of what you're going for. And then I talk to that title officer, the engineer in the department, and I can explain why or how a workaround, or could we bond around something, for example, and still close? Would that be other options that we legally can do to help the transaction move forward? Otherwise, it can stay stagnant. Because those are things like your example that need to get fixed. Otherwise, you call the title company, say, let's close, and we'd say no, and then we wouldn't do anything further because we still don't have a decision made. So then it will sit. So that's when you and I are always talking, because I say in my head, oh, that's right, Toni told me that she's going to go for this appearance, or she told me that these children and the ex-spouse is going to be showing up there, and then the determination will be made soon. Okay, so I know that's coming, and that's things that I have in my tool belt that I can explain when they say, oh, this person, this party, this principal just called in and said, let's close the transaction, but I don't see them on title. So okay, that's when I get to go back to you and Toni, and then you tell me that information, or no, they shouldn't be a party of the transaction at all, and then we should be in dialogue at that point with them. Yep,
for sure. Well, this has been amazing, and
thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having you back in this, start fine-tuning some very specific cases and scenarios. Is there anything that you would like to leave as some guidance or recommendations, or any other tips that you might want to share with us as it relates to, there's two sides. There's the real estate professional side of things. What should we be looking out for? And then there's the consumer side. What is it? Give us some things that they should be mindful of and they should be tuned into.
So the consumer should know that on the real estate transaction, I'm on the advisory board with the assessor's office with Jeffrey Prang. And so I go to the meetings because they want to know how to make life better for us out in in Los Angeles, in the world. And so they rely on what we offer back to them too. And one thing I just brought up to Jeffrey, praying that I said, for what is confusing for people, especially elderly people, kind of like the situation that you're talking about. After a transaction closes, you already have recorded that grant deed. You're going to get it back in the mail, the buyer for wherever they sign their deed to, and it comes to you in the mail, it's snail mail, so you still have to sit and wait for it. But you get a litany of mailers, postcards that come to you right after the close saying, buy this deed, buy a copy of the deed for $80, buy this for $24, send this in for $39. And it looks exactly the same as the assessor, the recorder's office's information. And it's intentional. But those are third-party servicing companies that are just trying to grab for money. And people need to know you don't have to. Once that transaction closes, once you get it from that title escrow and Toni, you hand over the keys. That's it at that point. That's when you're done. And that's when we're sending the policy to you. And you don't have to pay for anything, any of those things that come after.
Additional things. Yeah, that's a very, very good tip. So people need to really be mindful of things that are coming to them, asking them to pay additional money for certain things.
Yeah, exactly. And because it's redundant and it's provided part of the service of what we are providing to you. So why would you have to then go out somewhere else and do an additional purchase? You don't have to. You don't have to. And also something that I do is, if you want to send me, say, this looks like my client, is wondering, should they be mailing this back in or sending this or signing this? You can just snap a picture and show it to me. And I've seen enough of them where I go, ooh, that's a great one. That looks really good, but still don't do it. Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's
it's
good
just
to know.
A third check. I'm also like a resource at just looking out for people.
Right. And that's part of your whole, what you offer in service is really just being a second set of eyes, exactly, a backup, if you would, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, very good.
Exactly.
Any recommendations for realtors?
For realtors in this type of market, in this current market?
Yeah.
So keep on keeping on, right? We're in a tough market, but this is where the big wealth is made and exchanges hands in a depressed market. So if you can think about it in the way of the world, right? We always go, there's always ups, there's always downs, and stomaching, like being able to tolerate this particular market, it's tough. There's really, the lender's market is, out right now, pretty much because of rates. It'll come back though. It's cyclical, right? And so it's just pivoting to focus on where the business is going to come from at this time. And Toni, the life events happen in a recession, in the good times, doesn't matter what the market is, but there's always going to be marriages, deaths, divorce, babies. Those are all things that people, just the public, you want to move up. You have your townhome, and then you have, twins, and you want to get into the bigger home, and you advance in your job and your career. So movement still takes place. It still does. It's tough. It's tougher right now. But it'll come back around, and I can't wait for the next podcast where you're going to say to me, I'm so slammed just on regular transactions, Shauna, like this, but that's good because we go through the rounds together. And if you just pivot, and Toni, you pivot, you've always pivoted, you pivot first. And that's what's exciting to see, because you have to get into this, like the probate area right now. There are so many opportunities to get sales on that, because it's touching those people, because they need the help. They need the help.
They need help. There's so many people that need help. This is what I call a recession-proof business. When you're dealing with probate, death, divorce, defaults, those are recession-proof types of transactions. Those are recession-proof niches. And I tell agents, find yourself a niche.
Yes.
Find yourself a niche that has nothing to do with the economy.
You're
You know,
right.
if none of us are getting out of here alive, so that means everybody's going to die, right?
Right.
And
Right.
there's always going to be scenarios and opportunities where people need our services to get through these
Absolutely.
circumstances. There's divorce, there's bankruptcy, there's,
That's right.
there's,
Bankruptcy, great one.
yeah, so there's all of these circumstances that people are faced with, and they need a specialist. So my recommendation to all of you out listening, real estate professionals, go get yourself a niche and
Yes.
master it.
Exactly.
And master it. And the other thing is really fine tuning your ability to connect with people, because connectivity, when you master connectivity, you'll always have business because you connect with people. People do business with those that they like, trust, and know, right?
Yes.
So get yourself a niche,
Yes.
and master it. Go get a certification and really master it. And then
Find a
people come to you.
certification that speaks to you and
That's
do
right.
that specialty. And
Yeah.
that's great. Separate yourself from the pack.
Mhm,
Or
exactly.
even if you're doing residential real estate and you have your home base, your area that you're in, okay,
Yeah.
take that spot of where you go, find your favorite restaurant, and you always park it there, right? You have all your
Yes.
lunch meetings with your clients there. You get
Yeah.
to know the owner of that restaurant. You
Yeah.
build that relationship with that party, so people just get used to seeing you around, and then they feel comfortable. They feel
That's right.
comfortable just knowing that you're around. And then you take that too, and then you marry that with a local charity. You
Right.
find
That's
your
right.
charity.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you
So
go.
you find, if you're passionate about pets, go to your local humane society that's within that area that you're, close to that restaurant that you're going to too, and
Yep.
give back, help, donate your time, right? Any of that, because then you get to know the people there too. And then you
That's
can
right.
put that on your business card that you'll give a percentage back to,
That's right.
ASPCA. And then you're creating your network within,
Mhm.
within the area that you're farming in. That's another class that we could do, is farming.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that is another whole day.
It's a whole
of
nother
course.
class. I have so many, everything is so specific, and you can just spend
Mm,
hours on this.
hours and hours. Well, I'll tell you something that's exciting that's coming. I
Okay.
am one of the first agents globally, I can say, that's going to be AI certified. So
AI certified. Oh
yeah,
boy, tell me about this. This is the first time I'm hearing it.
yeah,
I gotta write this
fresh.
down.
It's fresh off the case. You're going to hear more about it. I will be complete with that certification Friday. So
Wow.
I want to get with you because it's
Yeah.
so powerful.
Right.
What this AI is doing today, it's cutting a lot of jobs out of the industry. Okay,
Sure.
because now we can speak to AI. We can be very specific about what we want to know and how we want to craft something. And literally within 30 seconds, it'll spit the narrative out for you. So they've got a very specific program for realtors now. And it's going to help you close deals because the AI is going to be a part of your whole presentation. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that's happening with it, with video, with audio, with narrative, with copy, content, all of it. It's unbelievable what it does. So I can't speak to it completely right now because I need to get through the certification, but you're going to start hearing a lot about it. Just know that it came from me.
Well, Toni, I have goosebumps. I literally have goosebumps because this is the kind of thing that I love to see and find out about. And I'm not surprised at all that you're doing this. And that's amazing. I'm finding out lifetime, that you're doing it too. And that is so fantastic. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about, that you're ahead of the curve. You're doing it. You're almost done with it.
Yeah. And I'm not a techie person at all, but I realize that I have to be in that space. Otherwise,
you have to.
You have to be in that space.
It's here.
So you get yourself VAs and you get somebody who can run that machine for you, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we cannot be in this business and not be in the AI space.
Right. And you don't have to be intimidated by it, even though it's
Right.
new, because you
Right.
can leverage it out for once you have this certification, you have the information, and then you have, right, your VA that you're kind of talking with and interacting with, that then they can leverage and use that. And it's part of your whole.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So I'm excited to bring that to market, and I'm going to have a different podcast with you just so we
Okay.
can go over those things, because a lot of it is
Yes.
going to have to do with targeting your ideal client profile. Okay.
Okay.
And you have that AI stuff that works with that. And then we tie it into the title searches, right? I can't wait. I can't wait, because I just know there's magic in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Toni.
And we'll have you back for sure. I'm loving this. I'm going to be having Escrow come on with me, and Melinda will come in and do a thing with me on Escrow. And then I did recently I did a thing with Jason Gill of the SoCal Purchase Loans. So he's a very, very seasoned mortgage professional. And
fantastic. Yep.
and so
that's
we
another
talked
part.
about
We're
that
always working with them.
whole thing. So I'm really trying to tie in all of the aspects and the elements of real estate. And there's a lot of different players involved, you know. It's not just simple. It's not just a plain black and white picture. You got lots of players involved. People don't really understand that when they're doing a transaction, how many people behind the scenes are involved with your transaction, right?
No idea. No idea. And even like myself, when you see that preliminary title report, my name's nowhere on there. Nowhere, ever. Ever. It's the title officer, it's the escrow officer, it's the agent, it's the things with the principal. But even though my hands are all over it, you're never even going to see my name.
You never know. Yeah. And then you may have your assistants, and then, you know, there's all kinds of arms and legs. So
yes, exactly.
Cool.
We have
all right, Shauna.
All right. Thank you so much, Toni.
You're welcome. Thank you. And we'll get a copy of this over to you, and you'll see it popping up in social media.
Okay, fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.